The Galactic University of Xenohistory prided itself on being the premier institution for studying the histories of various alien species across the known universe. Its hallowed halls had seen countless generations of bright-eyed students from thousands of different races, all eager to learn about the intricate past of civilizations beyond their own. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared the faculty for the day they decided to add human military history to the curriculum. Professor Zyx'norp, a respected Blorxian historian with 7 tentacles and a penchant for tweed jackets, don't ask how that works, stood before his class of eager alien students. His gelatinous body quivered with excitement as he prepared to introduce the new course. "Welcome, class," he gurgled, his voice modulator struggling to keep up with his enthusiasm. "Today we embark on a journey through the combat history of one of the galaxy's most interesting species, humans." A collective murmur rippled through the classroom. Some students leaned forward, intrigued. Others recoiled, having heard whispers about these humans and their propensity for violence. Now, Zyx'norp chuckled, his laughter sounding like a washing machine filled with marbles. "I know what you're thinking. Humans? Aren't they those squishy bipeds from that backwater planet? What's it called? Dirt? Earth? Yes, indeed, but let me tell you, their history is anything but dirt. Why? Well, actually, it's quite dirty, bloody even, but fascinating." He activated the holoprojector, and an image of Earth appeared, floating in the center of the classroom. This, students, is where it all began. A planet so rife with conflict that its inhabitants turned warfare into an art form. Buckle up, kids. It's going to be a wild ride. As the professor began his lecture, the alien students found themselves alternating between shocked gasps, nervous laughter, and the occasional "what the actual's" organ. This was the alien equivalent of a certain earthly expletive, and it was about to get a lot of use today. "Let's start with something simple," Zyx'norp said, his tentacles waving excitedly. "The concept of hand-to-hand combat. Yes, you heard that right. Humans would actually willingly get close enough to touch each other during battle. Can you imagine?" A Philippian student in the front row, whose species communicated through interpretive dance and color changes, turned a sickly shade of green. But wouldn't that be terribly inefficient? And messy? "Oh, absolutely," the professor laughed. "But that's humans for you. They have this saying, work smarter, not harder. And then they go and do the exact opposite in combat. It's hilarious." He flipped to the next slide, showing various human martial arts. They even turned it into a sport. "Look at this boxing. 2 humans purposely trying to concuss each other for entertainment. It's like they took evolution and said, nah, we're good, thanks." The class erupted in a mixture of laughter and horrified gasps. A Xentorian student raised one of its 17 appendages. "Professor, is it true that humans have bones? Like inside their bodies?" "Indeed they do," Zyx'norp confirmed. "Imagine having your exoskeleton on the inside. Ridiculous, right? But here's the kicker, they break these bones all the time in combat and just grow them back. Like it's no big deal." That's metal," whispered a Metallurian student who was, ironically, made entirely of organic polymers. "Speaking of metal," the professor continued, "let's talk about human weapons. Oh boy, did they love their weapons. They started with pointy sticks, yes, literally sticks they sharpened, and somehow ended up with thermonuclear devices capable of wiping out entire cities. Talk about an upgrade, am I right?" He paused for laughter, but the class was too stunned to respond. Undeterred, he pressed on. "Now let's discuss one of their most infamous warriors, Genghis Khan. This guy conquered so much territory that he inadvertently changed the planet's climate. Imagine being so good at war that you accidentally perform terraforming." A timid squiblon raised a gelatinous pseudopod. "Professor, I'm confused. If humans were so adept at combat, how did they not destroy themselves?" Zyx'norp's eye stalks twinkled with amusement. "Oh, they tried, multiple times. But here's the thing about humans, they're like those inflatable punching bags. You know, the ones that bounce back up no matter how hard you hit them. Humans are like that, but with an added twist of spite and a dash of hold my beer." The class looked puzzled at the unfamiliar idiom, but the professor waved a tentacle dismissively. "Earth colloquialism. You'll get used to it. Moving on." He flipped to a new slide showing various human weapons through the ages. "Let's talk about the evolution of human weaponry. They started with rocks. Yes, rocks. They looked at the ground and thought, hey, what if I threw this at someone really hard? And thus began millennia of increasingly creative ways to lob things at each other. The holoprojector cycled through images of spears, bows, catapults, and cannons. See this progression? It's basically how can we throw bigger rocks further and faster. Humans are nothing if not consistent in their rock-throwing ambitions. A Blorxian student, whose species reproduced through peaceful meditation, looked like it was about to faint. But why? Why all this conflict? Zyx'norp's tentacles wiggled in what passed for a shrug among his species. Oh, the usual reasons. Resources, territory, religion, politics. Sometimes they fought wars because someone insulted someone else's hat. I'm not joking. Look up the War of Jenkins' Ear when you have a chance. Humans, am I right? He chuckled, a sound reminiscent of a garbage disposal trying to process a rubber duck. But here's where it gets really interesting. Humans didn't just fight each other. Oh no, that would be too simple. They fought everything. The planet, the elements, even concepts. The professor pulled up an image of a mosquito. See this tiny insect? Humans waged war on these creatures for centuries. They're still fighting them. And don't even get me started on their war on drugs. Spoiler alert, the drugs are winning. A collective groan rippled through the class, punctuated by a few nervous giggles. Now let's talk about one of humanity's most impressive feats, turning combat into an economic powerhouse. Ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary sentients, I present to you the military-industrial complex. The holoprojector displayed a complex web of corporations, government entities, and dollar signs. The alien students stared, bewildered. You see, Zyx'norp explained, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Humans figured out that war could be profitable. Genius, right? Why fight for peace when you can fight for a fat paycheck? It's like they took Sun Tzu's Art of War and added a chapter on quarterly earnings reports. The Zygonian student, whose species had achieved universal peace millennia ago, raised a trembling tendril. Professor, are you saying humans monetized conflict? Monetized? My dear student, they industrialized it, they franchised it. If war were a fast food chain, humans would have put one on every corner of the galaxy by now. Would you like fries with your thermonuclear devastation? The class erupted in nervous laughter, unsure whether to be amused or terrified. But wait, there's more. Zyx'norp exclaimed, sounding disturbingly like a late-night infomercial host. Humans didn't stop at physical combat. Oh no, they had to go and invent psychological warfare too. Because apparently, traumatizing your enemies' bodies wasn't enough, you had to mess with their minds as well. He pulled up a series of propaganda posters from various human conflicts. Behold, the art of making your enemy seem like the spawn of pure evil, while simultaneously convincing your own population that they're the paragon of virtue. It's like gaslighting, but on a national scale. A Luminarian student, whose species communicated solely through the truth, looked positively ill. But that's lying. Oh, my sweet summer child, Zyx'norp chuckled. In human warfare, the first casualty is often the truth. They have a saying, all's fair in love and war. Though from what I've observed, neither love nor war is particularly fair in human culture. He flipped to the next slide, showing various human military uniforms throughout history. Now let's discuss fashion. Because apparently, if you're going to commit atrocities, you might as well look fabulous doing it. The alien students stared in bewilderment at the gaudy uniforms, complete with shiny buttons, epaulets, and enough medals to sink a small boat. Yes, you're seeing this correctly, Zyx'norp confirmed. Humans would often go into battle wearing bright colors and shiny objects. It's like they were trying to say, hey enemy, over here, shoot me first, but don't worry, they eventually figured out camouflage. Only took them a few thousand years. A chameleon student, whose species had mastered the art of blending in with their surroundings eons ago, couldn't contain its disbelief. But why would they ever want to be seen in battle? Excellent question. Zyx'norp beamed. You see, for a long time, humans considered it ungentlemanly to hide during combat. Yes, you heard that right. They had rules for killing each other. Isn't that adorable? The professor's sarcasm was so thick you could cut it with a knife, a concept that, ironically, many of the alien students were just now learning about. But let's move on to something truly baffling, human battle cries. Because apparently, yelling really loudly makes you more effective in combat. At least that's what humans believed for millennia. He played a series of audio clips, each featuring a different human battle cry. The alien students winced, their various auditory organs struggling to process the cacophony. From the rebel yell of the American Civil War to the era of Russian soldiers, humans loved to announce their presence on the battlefield. It's like they were saying, hey, I'm here to kill you, but first, let me serenade you with the song of my people. The class erupted in laughter, finally starting to see the absurd humor in human combat practices. Oh, and let's not forget the bagpipes, Zyx'norp added, his eye stalks quivering with mirth. Yes, some humans thought it was a good idea to bring musical instruments to battle. Nothing says I'm here to conquer you like a rousing rendition of Scotland the Brave, am I right? He played a clip of bagpipe music, and several students covered their audio receptors in distress. Professor, a Harmonian student asked, its melodious voice strained, Are you sure that's music and not some form of sonic weapon? Excellent observation. Zyx'norp chuckled. In fact, bagpipes were once classified as a weapon of war by the British. I'm not joking. Humans are so creative with their combat methods that they turn musical instruments into weapons. Talk about multitasking. The professor then moved on to a new topic, his tentacles wiggling with excitement. Now let's discuss one of humanity's most puzzling combat phenomena, the naval forces of landlocked countries. Yes, you heard that right. Countries with no access to the ocean still maintain navies. It's like buying a submarine to patrol your bathtub. The class burst into laughter, finally fully embracing the absurdity of human military history. Take Mongolia, for instance, Zyx'norp continued. A country famous for its vast steppes and nomadic culture decided, you know what we need? A navy. Never mind that their largest body of water is a lake. They've got 7 sailors and 1 tugboat ready to defend their nation from, well, I'm not quite sure what. Aggressive fish, perhaps? An Aquarian student, whose species evolved in the depths of a water world, looked utterly perplexed. But what's the point? The point, my dear student, is that when it comes to military matters, humans operate on a logic all their own. It's like they have a checklist: army, check; air force, check; navy. Well, we don't have an ocean, but let's not let that stop us. The professor then pulled up a series of images showing various human military exercises. And now we come to one of my favorite topics, military drills and exercises. Because apparently practicing how to fight is almost as important as actually fighting. The holoprojector displayed soldiers crawling under barbed wire, scaling walls, and marching in perfect unison. Observe, class. Humans spend an inordinate amount of time perfecting their ability to walk in straight lines and make their beds with hospital corners. Because nothing strikes fear into the heart of your enemy like a well-made bed, right? The alien students snickered, finally fully appreciating the professor's sarcastic humor. Oh, and let's not forget about their obsession with push-ups, Zyx'norp added. Humans seem to believe that the ability to repeatedly lower and raise one's body is directly correlated with combat effectiveness. I'm still trying to figure out how many push-ups one needs to do to stop a bullet, but I'll let you know when I crack that code. He then moved on to a slide showing various military medals and decorations. Now, here's a concept that might blow your minds. Humans give out shiny pieces of metal for exceptional acts of violence. They call them medals of valor or combat decorations. It's like a rewards program, but for warfare. Collect enough points and you too can have a chest full of colorful ribbons. A Pacifican student, whose species had evolved beyond the need for physical confrontation, raised a frond in confusion. But professor, doesn't that incentivize more violence? Ah, now you're thinking like a human military strategist. Zyx'norp beamed. Yes, indeed it does. It's almost as if they wanted to encourage more conflict. Shocking, I know. The professor then pulled up a series of images showing various military recruitment advertisements. And now, we come to one of the most baffling aspects of human military culture, how they convince young humans to join their armed forces. Behold, the art of military recruitment. The holoprojector cycled through posters and video clips, each more bombastic than the last. Images of heroic soldiers, high-tech equipment, and promises of adventure flashed before the alien students' eyes. You see, humans have perfected the art of making potential death and dismemberment look cool, Zyx'norp explained, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Why pursue a boring, safe career when you can be all you can be by risking life and limb in far-off lands? He paused, letting the absurdity sink in. They've even turned it into a game. Literally. And some human militaries use video games as recruitment tools. Because nothing says I'm ready for real combat like being really good at pushing buttons on a controller, right? The class erupted in a mixture of laughter and disbelieving groans. But wait, there's more. Zyx'norp exclaimed, sounding once again like an overly enthusiastic infomercial host. Join now, and you'll get such amazing benefits as possible, PT say, a lifetime of navigating complex veteran benefit systems, and the chance to tell war stories that will make your grandchildren uncomfortable at family gatherings. An Pathos student, whose species was known for their deep emotional connections, looked deeply troubled. Professor, this seems emotionally manipulative. Congratulations. Zyx'norp beamed, his tentacles wiggling in what passed for applause in his species. You've just identified one of the core principles of human military recruitment. Emotional manipulation is practically a prerequisite. The professor then moved on to a new slide, this one showing various military technologies throughout human history. Now, let's discuss one of humanity's most explosive contributions to the galaxy, their penchant for increasingly ridiculous ways to make things go boom. The holoprojector displayed a timeline starting with simple gunpowder and ending with antimatter weapons. The alien students watched in a mixture of awe and horror as the destructive potential increased exponentially. You see, class, humans have a saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But when it comes to warfare, they tend to skip the necessity part and go straight to how can we make a bigger explosion. Zyx'norp chuckled, his laughter sounding like a malfunctioning garbage disposal. Take the nuclear bomb, for instance, he continued, pulling up an image of a mushroom cloud. Humans looked at the fundamental forces holding matter together and thought, hey, what if we rip that apart really fast? And voila, they created a weapon capable of wiping out entire cities in the blink of an eye. A Prudentian student, whose species had evolved to be excessively cautious, looked like it was about to faint. But why? Why create something so destructive? Zyx'norp's eye stalks drooped in what might have been a sympathetic expression. Ah, therein lies the parrot of human warfare. They created weapons so terrible, so unthinkably destructive, that they hoped never to use them. They called it deterrence. It's like buying a planet-killing superweapon and using it as a paperweight. The class sat in stunned silence, trying to wrap their various appendages around this concept. But don't worry, the professor continued, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Humans didn't stop there. Oh no, that would be too simple. They then decided to make these world-ending weapons mobile. Behold, the nuclear submarine. He pulled up an image of a sleek, black submarine. Imagine, if you will, a vessel capable of staying underwater for months at a time, armed with enough firepower to end civilization as we know it. Humans built these by the dozens and then played a global game of hide and seek with them. They called it strategic deterrence. I call it the most expensive game of underwater tag in galactic history. The alien students couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all, their various forms of mirth creating a cacophony of snorts, clicks, and bubbling sounds. Oh, but we're not done yet, Zyx'norp exclaimed, his enthusiasm seemingly undiminished. Let's talk about one of humanity's most puzzling military innovations, camouflage fashion. The holoprojector displayed a series of images showing military uniforms with various camouflage patterns. The alien students squinted, trying to make sense of the seemingly random splotches of color. You see, humans figured out that being seen in battle was, in fact, not ideal, so they set about trying to blend in with their surroundings. A noble goal, to be sure. But then they decided to take it to ridiculous extremes. He pulled up an image of a soldier wearing a camouflage uniform in an urban setting. Behold, the pinnacle of human military fashion, urban camouflage, because nothing says I'm trying to blend in like dressing up as a concrete wall. The class erupted in laughter, some students nearly falling out of their seats, those that had seats anyway. But wait, there's more. Zyx'norp continued, his voice taking on the tone of an overly enthusiastic salesperson. Act now, and you'll get not one, not two, but dozens of different camouflage patterns. We've got woodland, desert, Arctic, and my personal favorite, digital camouflage. Because apparently humans think that nature is secretly made up of pixels. He paused, letting the laughter die down before continuing. And let's not forget about their naval camouflage. Humans, in their infinite wisdom, decided that the best way to hide a massive ship was to paint it like a cubist nightmare. They called it dazzle camouflage. The idea wasn't to hide the ship, but to confuse the enemy about its speed and direction. Because if you can't hide a giant floating metal beast, you might as well make it look like a migraine. The professor then moved on to a new topic, his tentacles wiggling with barely contained amusement. Now let's discuss one of the most baffling aspects of human warfare, their obsession with acronyms and military jargon. He pulled up a slide filled with an incomprehensible jumble of letters and numbers. The alien students squinted, trying to make sense of it all. You see, class, humans have this peculiar habit of turning every possible military concept into an acronym. It's as if they're allergic to using full words in combat situations. Observe. Zyx'norp cleared his throat, or what passed for a throat in his species, and began to recite. The SEAL team, using hollow insertion, deployed their manpads and HFY systems to neutralize enemy AAA. After achieving seed, they proceeded to their heft, maintaining OPSC throughout the AO. He paused, looking at the bewildered faces of his students. Did anyone understand a word of that? A brave Lagosian student, whose species prided themselves on their linguistic abilities, raised a tentative appendage. Something about seals and hallows? The professor burst into laughter, a sound reminiscent of a malfunctioning blender. Excellent guess. But no, that sentence, believe it or not, is describing a special forces team parachuting from high altitude, using portable anti-air and anti-tank weapons to destroy enemy air defenses, before moving on to capture an important target while maintaining secrecy. The class sat in stunned silence. You see, Zyx'norp continued, wiping a gelatinous tear from one of his eye stalks. Humans have turned warfare into a linguistic puzzle. It's like they're saying, sure, we could just speak plainly, but where's the fun in that? Let's make combat as confusing as possible. He then pulled up a new slide, this one showing various military formations throughout human history. Now, let's discuss another peculiar aspect of human warfare, their obsession with standing in neat lines and geometric shapes. The holo-projector cycled through images of Roman legions in tight formations, Napoleonic-era soldiers in long lines, and modern troops in various tactical formations. For much of their history, Zyx'norp explained, his voice tinged with amusement, humans thought the best way to fight was to stand really close together in very organized shapes, because apparently the key to victory is good geometry. He pointed to an image of a Roman testudo formation. Observe the tortoise formation. Humans would huddle together, holding their shields above their heads to create a shell-like structure. It's like they saw a tortoise and thought, yes, that's exactly how I want to fight. Slow and encumbered. The class chuckled, some students shaking their heads in disbelief. But it gets better, the professor continued, his eye stalks quivering with mirth. During the age of gunpowder, humans decided that the best way to use their new shooty boom sticks was to stand in long lines, take turns firing, and then slowly reload while the enemy did the same. It's like they turned warfare into a very deadly version of taking turns. He paused, letting the absurdity sink in. Can you imagine? Excuse me, good sir, I've just shot at you. Would you mind terribly waiting while I reload? Then you can have a go at shooting me. Jolly good. The alien students were now openly laughing, some holding their various body parts in mirth. Oh, but we're not done yet, Zyx'norp exclaimed, his enthusiasm seemingly boundless. Let's talk about one of humanity's most puzzling military traditions, the naval ship christening ceremony. He pulled up an image of a human smashing a bottle of champagne against the hull of a massive warship. The alien students looked on in confusion. You see, class, when humans finish building a new ship designed for warfare, they celebrate by breaking a perfectly good bottle of fermented grape juice on it. Because nothing says this vessel is ready for combat like dousing it in alcohol. A temperance student, whose species had never developed intoxicants, raised a confused tendril. But why waste the drink? Excellent question. Zyx'norp beamed. The answer, like many things in human military history, is tradition. Humans love their military traditions almost as much as they love finding new ways to blow things up. He then moved on to a new slide, this one showing various military animals throughout human history. Now, let's discuss one of humanity's most creative approaches to warfare, their use of animals in combat. The holo-projector displayed images of war horses, carrier pigeons, and even stranger examples like war elephants and military dolphins. You see, class, humans looked at the animal kingdom and thought, you know what would make warfare more interesting? Involving creatures that have absolutely no stake in our conflicts. He pointed to an image of a cavalry charge. For thousands of years, humans thought the height of military technology was sitting on top of a large, fast-running animal. They called it cavalry, and it was considered the elite of many armies, because apparently the key to military superiority is really good posture while on horseback. The class chuckled, some students shaking their heads in disbelief. But it gets better, Zyx'norp continued, his eye stalks quivering with barely contained laughter. Humans didn't stop at horses. Oh no, that would be too simple. They used elephants in warfare. Yes, you heard that right. They took the largest land animal on their planet and thought, yes, this slow-moving, easily frightened creature is exactly what we need on the battlefield. He paused, letting the absurdity sink in. Can you imagine? Charge men. And don't forget to feed the elephants their peanuts, or they might decide to sit down in the middle of battle. The alien students were now openly laughing, some holding their various appendages in mirth. Oh, but we're not done yet. Zyx'norp exclaimed, his enthusiasm seemingly boundless. Let's talk about one of humanity's most unusual military programs, dolphin warfare. He pulled up an image of a dolphin wearing what appeared to be some sort of harness. The alien students looked on in confusion. Yes, you're seeing this correctly, the professor confirmed. Humans decided that what their navies really needed was aquatic mammals with sonar capabilities. They trained dolphins to detect mines, recover lost equipment, and even, allegedly, to attack enemy divers. It's like they saw Flipper and thought, you know what would make this better? Weaponizing it. A cetacean student, whose species bore a striking resemblance to Earth's dolphins, looked utterly perplexed. But why not just use machines? Ah, but where's the fun in that? Zyx'norp chuckled. Humans have a saying, work smarter, not harder. And then they go and train sea mammals for naval warfare. It's like they're allergic to simplicity. The professor then moved on to a new topic, his tentacles wiggling with barely contained amusement. Now let's discuss one of the most paradoxical aspects of human warfare, their concept of rules of engagement. He pulled up a slide showing various international treaties and conventions related to warfare. The alien students leaned in, intrigued. You see, class, humans have this peculiar notion that even in the midst of trying to kill each other, there should be etiquette. They've created elaborate rulebooks dictating what is and isn't acceptable in warfare. It's like they're saying, we're going to destroy each other, but let's be civilized about it, shall we? Zyx'norp pointed to an image of the Geneva Conventions. Observe an entire set of international treaties devoted to making warfare more humane. Because apparently, there's a right way to engage in organized violence. He paused, his eye stalks drooping in mock seriousness. For instance, it's perfectly acceptable to shoot someone, but using certain types of bullets is considered unsportsmanlike. You can bomb a city, but you must make a reasonable effort to avoid historical monuments. It's like they've turned warfare into a very deadly game of Calvin ball, where the rules are made up and the points don't matter. The class erupted in laughter, some students nearly falling out of their seats, those that had seats anyway. But wait, there's more. Zyx'norp continued, his voice taking on the tone of an overly enthusiastic game show host. Act now, and you'll get the Laws of War expansion pack. It comes with such exciting features as the right to get really upset if your enemy doesn't wear a uniform, the ability to call time out if you need to collect your dead, and everyone's favorite, the right to complain to an international court if your enemy doesn't play nice. He paused, letting the laughter die down before continuing. But in all seriousness, class, these rules of engagement represent one of the most fascinating paradoxes of human warfare. Even in their most violent moments, humans strive to maintain some semblance of morality and order. It's almost admirable, in a deeply confusing sort of way. The professor then pulled up a final slide, this one showing Earth from space. And so, class, we come to the end of our whirlwind tour through human military history. What have we learned? He looked out at the sea of alien faces, some still chuckling, others looking thoughtful, and a few seeming slightly traumatized. We've learned that humans are a species of paradoxes. They're capable of incredible violence, yet they strive to regulate that violence. They create weapons of unimaginable destruction, then work tirelessly to ensure they're never used. They turn warfare into an art form, complete with its own fashion, language, and etiquette. Zyx'norp's voice took on a more serious tone. But most importantly, we've learned that despite their violent history, or perhaps because of it, humans have an unparalleled drive to improve, to do better. They've gone from throwing rocks at each other to exploring the stars in a blink of cosmic time. He gestured to the image of Earth. This little blue planet has produced some of the greatest warriors the galaxy has ever seen. But it's also given us philosophers, peacemakers, and visionaries. The same species that invented the nuclear bomb also created music that can move one to tears, art that can inspire millions, and scientific discoveries that have reshaped our understanding of the universe. The professor's eye stalk swept across the classroom. So the next time you encounter a human, remember this. You're looking at the end result of millions of years of evolution, thousands of years of warfare, and an unbreakable spirit that has faced the worst the universe can throw at it, and somehow managed to laugh in the face of it all. He paused, letting his words sink in. Class dismissed. And remember your assignment, write a 5,000-word essay on why challenging a human to a fight is statistically the worst decision any sentient being can make. Extra credit if you can work in a joke about their bizarre love for horses in combat. Class dismissed. As the alien students filed out of the classroom, a cacophony of chatter in various alien languages filled the air. Some were laughing, some were shaking their heads in disbelief, and more than a few looked like they needed a stiff drink, or whatever passed for alcohol in their respective biologies. Zyx'norp watched them go, a satisfied wiggle in his tentacles. He turned back to his desk, already planning the next lecture. Maybe we'll cover human sports next time. Now there's a topic that'll really blow their minds. Imagine trying to explain ice hockey to a species that's never seen ice. And with that, the professor settled in to grade some papers, humming a tune that sounded suspiciously like it's a small world after all. Because even in the far future, some Earth songs are just too catchy to die. The saga of teaching alien students about the bizarre,